Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I'd like to thank each of you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Brandy Williams, and I'm a career coach for the Center for Career and Professional Success. And so I appreciate you all joining me today for Getting Comfortable Networking Online. Before we move forward, I want to just go over a couple of things. First off, as a reminder, this session will be recorded or is being recorded. So you know that. Also, as you are joining the session, if you wouldn't mind typing in your name, number in the chat box for me. By doing that, you will be able to get information, including this presentation and anything else that I share today, sent to you via email. So that would be great if you could do that. As far as questions, if you could, you're more than welcome if you want to put that information into the chat box. We are a fairly small group, it looks like, and so if you would just like to go ahead and share out loud whatever your question is, that's fine as well. My plan is to kind of stop periodically between some of the slides and ask if anyone has questions. And so feel free to either shout it out, or if you want to put something in the chat box, that's fine as well. Just keep in mind regarding the chat box, I likely will not take a look at those questions until we're all done, just to kind of keep everything flowing. All right? Okay, so first off, I want to share with you some of the awesome resources that Career Success offers. So first off, career coaching. As I mentioned, I am a career coach. And so you can schedule an appointment with me or one of our other career coaches via handshake. And doing so will allow you to touch base with us, like and gain some particular strategies, resources, tactics that are more aligned with your career interests as you are going through college and trying to figure out your interests and internships and jobs that you may want to consider in the future. Those sessions are about 30 minutes long, and you're welcome to meet with more than one coach. So know that that's definitely something accessible to you at any time. Also, there is VMOC, which is a fairly new resource. And so with VMOC, you can upload that information into the system, and then it will provide quick feedback related to how to make the wording of your resume stronger, just kind of things that make you stand out to employers a bit more. Now, one thing we encourage you to do is when you use VMOC, make sure that you also try to follow up with a career coach via appointment to get some additional feedback on the changes that you may have made based on what you gained from VMOC. All right. And then finally, our guides and tip sheets. We have a large number of guides and tip sheets. I absolutely love our guides and tip sheets. There's something for whatever concern you might have related to your career development. So be it interviewing, networking, as we're talking about today, career exploration, resumes, whatever it is you need, the guides and tip sheets will be there for you. All right. So when we are all done here, I strongly encourage you to visit our website and check out all that we have to offer if you haven't done so before. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay. So first off, why virtual networking? Well, mainly because, just because we're going through this awful pandemic, that doesn't mean that your career development needs to stop. Instead, this is a perfect opportunity for you to reflect on your interest area and to continue to connect with employers, because employers haven't stopped. As you can see from Virtual Week, we've had a large number of employers hosting different information sessions. There's been virtual career fairs. And so employers are still out there and offering opportunities to some capacity. And so you may be inclined to kind of think, well, I'm not able to go and take classes on campus. And so I'm just going to take this time to chill out, not worry about being anxious about talking to employers and stuff along those lines. That is definitely what you do not want to do. Continue to go ahead and network with employers because they're out there, they still want to connect with you. And then in addition, what's kind of cool about virtual networking is that you're not limited to who you're speaking to. Generally when you're doing in-person networking, you know, it's in person, face to face. And so maybe you're just limited to who's at the career fair, who's at the employer information session, so on and so forth. But with virtual networking, the people that you can access is so broad. So definitely take advantage of networking at this time. All right, it looks a little different, but that's okay. We can work through it. So how to prepare for virtual networking. So the way that you prepare for virtual networking is pretty much the same as you would for in-person networking. You want to make sure that you are being intentional about your purpose. And so by that, I mean just knowing what you want to accomplish. So is it that you're looking for an internship? Are you just trying to get an idea of what your options are based on your skill set, your interests, and your experience? You know, maybe you're trying to consider your job options in the future. Whatever it is, that will kind of help you to determine what your strategy is going to be, who you're going to want to speak to, what types of events you want to pursue, so on and so forth. So it's very important to take a minute and have an idea of what you want to accomplish. Doing so will also show the employer that you're really serious about, you know, connecting with them and just not going up to them asking them to educate you on what your options are, but just showing them that you've actually done your research. In addition, whenever you're networking, you want to make sure you have your elevator pitch together. And so that's pretty much just your introduction of who you are, what you have to offer, what some of your goals are. And if I can, I want to try to show you Okay, so are you seeing the elevator pitch tip sheet? Awesome, okay. So it's easier for me versus just talking at you about it. This is one of our tip sheets that we have related to elevator pitches. And so here it speaks to the different elements of an elevator pitch. And again, this is probably something that you're already familiar with, but I think it helps to still show in case you're not familiar with the resource we have to offer. And then in addition, there are multiple examples. So this can be beneficial depending on the type of event you're going to, be it a virtual networking event, career fair, whatever it is. Each of these give examples of what that might look like. And then on the last page, you can actually use that to critique your own elevator pitch. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Okay, so back to the presentation. All right, so secondly, your first impression. So you can't take your first impression back, right? And so your first impression when you are networking can stem from your resume. And so it's ideal that before you put yourself out there, that you take a minute and have someone take a look at your resume. So ideally, it would be like a career coach who can kind of look through it. They may be more familiar with what employers are looking for. And so having their set of eyes look at it is always a good idea. In addition, like I mentioned, doing your research, having questions prepared that you want to ask before you actually start networking with someone. And that kind of helps you to make sure that you meet your goals. And then also your social media presence. There are some employers who will check out your social media, so be it Facebook, Twitter, whatever the case may be. And there are some that maybe might not. Regardless, I would still make sure that you have that in check. Make sure it's private, make sure you don't have anything on there that's inappropriate or that you would kind of feel uncomfortable discussing with an employer should they ask you a question about it. And then finally, what's important is outlining your strategy. So again, your tactics, which we'll go into a little bit more, figuring out who you know, identifying the people that you would like to know, the different industries you would like to get into, maybe identify your top 5 or 10 employers that you want to check out, and then planning to visit their LinkedIn pages, following them on LinkedIn, on Twitter, so on and so forth. All right. Okay, so this portion is unique to virtual networking, and that is making sure that your technology is in check. Because the last thing you want to do is, be speaking to an employer via your laptop or tablet, computer, what have you, and there's a lot of noise going on in the background. Things are looking really busy, like your background is kind of busy. And so these are just some different tips that you want to make sure you consider before you actually start networking virtually. So testing your sound is always a good thing, making sure your connections are good, even choosing certain clothing that doesn't allow you to blend into the wall. So you don't want to wear a red shirt if you're going to be standing behind a red wall. Also making sure that you don't have too many patterns on your shirt, because you don't want that to be distracting. Also like the lighting, keeping in mind that a lot of times with technology, there's that gap when someone is speaking, and so that awkward silence, but just know that that's okay. It's good to kind of wait before you begin speaking so that you two aren't kind of overlapping and talking over one another, all right? And then finally, just making sure that you're speaking confidently and clearly. Okay. Okay, so now let's get into the different options and strategies that you can use for virtual networking. So LinkedIn is something that many of us are familiar with. It's a common social networking tool that people utilize, or professional networking tool that people utilize. And so it's always cool, like after attending a virtual career fair, a virtual information session, whatever it might be, it's always a great idea to try to connect with the professional that you are interacting with. But when you do that, you want to make sure that you're not using the default message in LinkedIn. Instead, it's a good idea to actually critique your message so it's more clear to them, your whole purpose for reaching out to them, even sharing where you all actually first interacted, so that can kind of jog their memory. So avoid using the default message. By critiquing your message to them, that might also make them, more inclined to actually accept your connection. Now, it's true that you are limited by characters, when you're sending out that message to employers. And so perhaps you can't be too specific, but you want to give them enough information so that they will be inclined to join. And then hopefully they'll accept your connection. And then once that's secured, you'll be able to offer more information about how you would like to interact with them. With LinkedIn, there's lots of other options now. Instead of me talking through that, I want to actually go to LinkedIn. So let's go. Okay. All right. So I hope everyone can see this. So I'm on LinkedIn's page. So as I mentioned, there's lots of other ways aside from just connecting to different professionals. You can actually search for alumni, OSU Alumni. And so if we go to OSU's website or their group page and scroll down just a bit and click on alumni here. And then you get to this page where you can search for alumni by all these different categories. And so where they live, where they work, also what they do and what they study. And for some of the categories, you can add like other majors or areas of study, locations, where they work, so on and so forth. So say we want to identify alumni in the Columbus area who work for Nationwide Children's Hospital. So I'll just limit to those two categories. And then if we scroll down, then you'll see all the different alumni who work at Nationwide Children's. And then you'll be able to click on their profile and get a little bit more information about who they are. And that can help you determine whether or not you actually want to try to connect with them. Okay. So I think that's pretty cool. So, and granted, you can reach out to the alumni. There's no guarantee that they will reply or respond to you, But nonetheless, I think it's always a good idea to at least try, because you never know. And for the most part, you know, people want to help other people. Alumni want to help other alumni and students. And then also we all like talking about each other, you know, as well. So they may be more inclined to kind of share. You'll see at the top, you can click here and it'll show you all the employees at Ohio State that are on LinkedIn. Okay, so that's kind of cool. In addition to searching for alumni, you can also search for like different groups. And so I did a little bit prior to, so say you had an interest in cybersecurity, you can look and see if there are groups that exist. And if so, go ahead and join the group. And what's nice is, you know, the group generally will consist of different professionals. So you can view the discussions in the group. You can contribute information, like if you want to share your opinion, offer your own insight, you can do that. Or if initially you kind of just want to review it, gain some information for your own benefit, that's fine as well. But I think either way is good. It's also nice because being that there are professionals in the group, they're going to be people who you may want to consider connecting to. So not just looking at the discussions, but also saying, hey, this person has an interesting background. I would love to be able to sit down with them online and do an informational interview. So there's lots of different ways you can utilize LinkedIn.
I have a comment. So I was following along on, like, when you were searching alumni on Ohio State, and I found, like, when I clicked under alumni, I found some people that actually are still in school and not actually alumni.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that because I saw some of my friends under alumni and I was like, you are not an alumni.
Right.
So be careful.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened, but yeah, definitely be aware of that. And that's a good reason why once you open a profile to do the research and check them out, so then you know whether or not it's worthwhile contacting them. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay. Okay, so something else I also had on that slide with LinkedIn is Alumni Fire. And so Alumni Fire has been around for, you know, a couple years. I can't recall exactly. But what's nice about Alumni Fire is that it consists of both students and alumni who have, well, the students for the most part are likely trying to get assistance, but the alumni have expressed an interest in paying it forward. And so they're saying that they want to, you know, help another student, help another alumni with their career development. So you can see from, if I scroll down a little bit, so over here, under Buckeye's offer, it gives you an idea of some of the career development advice that the Buckeyes are willing, that the alumni are willing to offer. So if you want to do informational interviews, if you're looking for resume feedback, mentoring, so on and so forth, you can identify alumni on this system who are willing to provide that type of guidance. Now, what you have to do is, okay, so if we go to members, okay, so from the members tab up top, you can actually filter your search. And so be it based on their education, even based on their residence hall, the different groups they were a part of when they were a student, or even the industry that they're currently in, you can select your filters, and then over here, it would highlight the results of your search. All right. And then if you open, I'll just click on anybody at this point. Okay, so if we look at Amy Jo, so her profile is fairly detailed. Like on my right, you can see a little bit more about her. So what she's willing to offer, where she currently resides or her hometown, some of the groups she's involved in, so on and so forth. And so then you would be able to message her, you know, based on what she said she's looking for and based on what she said she's willing to offer. Okay. So learn about opportunities to help. So this is a cool resource. And what's nice about Alumni Fire that's a little different than LinkedIn, with LinkedIn, we're just kind of reaching out to people, alumni out there that we think have a, you know, interesting background, something that's related to our own. Whereas with Alumni Fire, you know for sure that the people out here definitely do want to help you. And so hopefully they're going to be more inclined to respond to your request. Now, granted, it's quite possible that you might not get responses on Alumni Fire either, but bottom line, you still got to try and use all the options that you have. All right. Any questions about Alumni Fire? No? Okay.
I know. So I'm in a non-teaching degree program called TOPS at Ohio State, and I don't know how to like I know that some employers don't know what TOPS is.
Okay.
So how would I explain it virtually to them?
How would you express that virtually to them?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Would you need to initially, like, are you saying as part of your elevator pitch?
Like on my I'm like if I made a account on Alumni Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I would do is maybe just on Alumni Fire, because you will have a profile, so you're able to kind of speak to some of the things you're involved in. And so I believe as part of TOPS, there are different activities that you are involved in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I would just use your description to kind of speak to it. And then as you begin networking with that particular alumni or professional, I imagine that would give you a greater opportunity to kind of elaborate more, you know, if the question comes up about what TOPS actually is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Okay. So, all right, so we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about Alumni Fire. The link for Alumni Fire is there if you want to refer to it in the future. Okay, so additional options for virtual networking. So, you know, we talked about the kind of traditional forms of like LinkedIn and Alumni Fire, but then here I highlighted some more creative forms of virtual networking that perhaps we don't generally think of, but are kind of really neat. And so first of all, meetup.com. So I had heard of this before, but I wasn't 100% familiar. I thought it was more like for social networking, but there are actually different professional groups that you can join. And so I noticed that there is a career and business section that you can search under. And then also you can even use networking as your keyword. And that will also generate some different groups that are all about professional networking. And there are a variety of categories. And so you can even search by your interests, your particular career interests, and see if something pops up. But they might be smaller groups, they might be larger groups, but bottom line, it's a good way for you to network with lots of different people. And what's also nice is that you can search based on location. So, you know, so once we're able to go out and about, meet with people in person, you would be able to search for, you know, somebody in Columbus, or if you're back home in Cleveland, perhaps they have a group there as well. Okay. Starting a blog. So I don't know how many bloggers we have, if we have anyone who's ever considered writing a blog, but I think a blog would be a great way for you to kind of speak to what your current journey is. And so, you know, you may have, if you've done any journaling before, that's where you kind of speak to, you know, how you're feeling, you're reflecting on your goals. If you end up doing like informational interviewing, attending different virtual sessions, you can use your blog to speak about those experiences. You can even use the blog to kind of toot your own horn. And so based on, you know, your involvement with internships, your campus involvement, maybe some of the leadership roles that you've had, you can incorporate all of that into your blog. And so then, you know, maybe you can share that with others, or just as others come across it, they may find it intriguing and then decide that they want to reach out to you. And then nonetheless, it will be something great to also talk about in an interview, or when you are doing some virtual networking at a career fair, you know. So just adding something else to kind of toot your own horn and get yourself out there. Creating a podcast or a YouTube channel, that's you know, kind of creative, something maybe you hadn't considered before. But again, you're putting yourself out there. What's nice about like the podcast or YouTube channel is that you can invite professionals to be interviewed. And so that is, you know, you're interviewing them, so you're gaining helpful information for yourself, but then you're also able to share with them, you know, different insights and knowledge that you know and experiences that you have. So again, you're getting information from them, but then you're also showing them what you have to offer. And that could possibly lead to an opportunity in the future, or based on what they learn from you, they may say, hey, I know someone who will really, you know, benefit from what you have to offer. Let me connect you to them. And so it's a two-way street. It's a neat and creative way to get yourself out there. It's a great way for you to get some information. It's something that you could put on your resume, something that you could probably add to your LinkedIn page. And so just kind of thinking out the box, doing what we can to get ourselves in front of employers while we are at home and not able to interact face to face. Okay? Any questions about these different options? Okay, so some additional options. So I've spoken a lot about informational interviews. I think informational interviews are very beneficial, particularly if you are not quite sure what you want to do, or even if you're just trying to secure your options. Like maybe you decided, okay, I definitely want to go in this direction, but it will be so helpful for me to actually speak to someone who's in the field, who is, you know, doing this day to day, that I can kind of speak to and pick their brain so I can know for sure that I want to invest my time in pursuing this particular career. So it's great for that reason. And then if you're not quite sure what you want to do, it's also great because you're not limited to the number of people that you can speak to when doing an informational interview. So I strongly encourage you to do that. We do have a tip sheet related to informational interviewing, and I can show you that in just a second. It's also nice to invite people for virtual coffee or tea. And so that could just maybe be 10 or 15-minute conversation that you have online. Again, it's a way for you to build your network, you know, gain that connection. Perhaps a virtual coffee chat or tea can lead to something else. So more like an internship, volunteer opportunity, whatever it is, just be open to it. Career Success, we are offering a number of virtual career events. And so again, your career development cannot stop. And so I encourage you to check out our website as well as handshake.osu.edu for all of the different events that we have going on. I know we have more continuing through April, and so we're going to keep offering those for you all. And then also what I call oldie but goodie, cold calls and emailing people. Now, granted, I wouldn't put this up as your top, you know, tactic for virtual networking. However, again, I encourage you to use multiple options and ways of connecting with people. And so if you want to do cold calling, Sometimes that works a little bit better with smaller organizations, like you might find with a nonprofit organization. They may be more inclined to answer your call. Often nonprofit organizations maybe don't have their opportunities posted on their website, and so calling them directly wouldn't be a bad thing. But you just want to make sure that, again, you're intentional. And so before you make that call, you've researched the website, you've researched to see if they have any opportunities posted. If they do, that's great. If they don't, you can, speak to that when you give them a call. But just make sure you call them, explain to them who you are, what your purpose is for reaching out, and seeing if they can connect you to somebody who can, speak to you about your current particular interest. All right. So let's go. I want to show you the informational interview tip sheet. Okay. So this tip sheet, as well as the elevator pitch, are both located under the networking tab. When you visit the guides and tip sheet section, they're both going to be under the networking tab. And as a reminder, if you forget, it's always going to be there. Okay. So this kind of gives an overview of what you can gain by doing informational interviews. It's also a nice guide because it does kind of walk you through who to interview, where to find these particular people. Excuse me. Also, like different questions that you can ask. So you're not limited to these questions at all. But I think it's nice just to kind of start you off to give you a feel for what you may want to consider. And then there's also guidance related to initiating contact. Sometimes that's like one of the hardest steps, knowing exactly what you want to say. And so this gives an example of what that email might look like. Or if you are, more so doing cold calling, you can also use this as a guide for what that call might look like. Okay. All right. Okay, so next I want to just go over some best practices for successful virtual networking. So first off, I've shared a lot of different tactics and options that you can utilize. I would encourage you to take your time. Don't try to, use all of the tactics at once. Even, start out with the ones that maybe are most comfortable to you, because it's natural to have some anxiety related to networking. And definitely virtual networking, because it's new to everybody. So maybe just take your time, baby steps. Don't try to tackle everything at one time. And then continue to develop new and deepen existing contacts. And so I imagine that you have already done some networking up until this point. And so don't lose track of those individuals. This is a wonderful time to reach out to them via email or give them a call and say, hey, I was thinking about you. I'm still in the process of exploring my options. Would love to touch base for tea or coffee virtually. Would you be available? And if so, could you let me know when? So just kind of continuing to nurture those particular connections that you've already gained. And again, deepening or building some new contacts. You want to make sure that you're always tracking who you are interacting with. And so you can do that by maybe creating a spreadsheet. I imagine there's multiple different apps that you can utilize as well. But if a spreadsheet works, that's fine. And so just making sure that you're tracking their name, who they work for, their position, and even like your first interaction, where it was that you met them or who actually connected you to them. Because it's quite possible that through a family member or friend, they may be able to connect you to different people. So just making sure that you're marking that down as a reminder to yourself, as a good reference to yourself. All right. And then also step out of your comfort zone. So again, I shared some traditional means of networking and then some that are maybe a little bit new and creative, maybe not new, just creative as a whole, maybe not necessarily new to you, but maybe just not something that we generally think of because we're usually networking in person. And so it's good to step out of your comfort zone, take those baby steps, just kind of pace yourself. I think if you prepare yourself, then that can ease some of the anxiety that you may feel when you're thinking about networking. And so just do all that you can to prepare yourself, truly reflect on who you are, what you have to offer, and what your interests are. And know that, for the most part, everyone wants to help someone else. And so know that people are going to be willing. They're expecting you to greet them, particularly at different information sessions and career fairs, virtual career fairs and information sessions. Employers are there because they want to connect with you. So they expect you to approach them. They expect you to ask questions. But it's up to you to take that first step and prepare yourself so you're asking the appropriate questions that can help you accomplish your long-term goals, long and short-term goals. All right? Don't take it personal. So by that, I mean that it's no guarantee that an employer is going to get back to you immediately. Some employers may still be adjusting to, us all being at home. Some employers are trying to figure out, what's going to go on with their part-time and full-time employees. And so it's quite possible they're just not going to get back to you within a week or within a couple of days. So be patient. I encourage you to still be persistent without being overwhelming though, okay? And so if you don't hear from an employer in a week, I would say it's okay to go ahead and reach out to them again. Just to say, hey, wanted to touch base. I remain very interested, would love to be able to sit down with you to get more information about opportunities, so on and so forth, okay? So it's cool to be persistent, but you also need to recognize when it's time to kind of move on to other contacts, right? And then meet with a career coach. So you are not in this alone. We are here for you. We want to make sure that you are making the best first impression, that you are getting connected to lots of different employers aligned with your interests. And so I would definitely encourage you to connect with a career coach, schedule an appointment via handshake, even if maybe you are not actively networking, maybe you're not actively looking for an internship, but you just have some questions, we can help you and walk you through that process. Okie doke. Are there any questions? I am going to see if I can check. Awesome. All righty. Well, if you all don't have any questions, that is all I have. As I mentioned, I encourage you to take advantage of all of our resources in career success. So I hope to see you all either virtually via handshake appointment or by phone. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to contact me. My email address is williams.2797@osu.edu. All righty. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful weekend.